Okay, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I hope all of you are doing good. Myself, Tooba Mirza. And today we are going to speak with Erica Perry. She is one of our PGMP delegates, and she has recently earned her PGMP credential with above target. So she is going to speak about her insights, her lessons learned, her like some tips and tricks about the exam. Before that, let me quickly introduce myself, my company, and then I'm going to request Arika for the same, and then we are going to formally begin the conversation. So I am Tuba Mirza. I am representing my company, Ontime Training and Consultancy Services here. I'm the owner, lead trainer, and consultant in the company, and I uh, I have a career of around 18 to 19 years now. I used to work in the corporate sector as well and I have worked like in all domains in the management, project management, then program management, portfolio management, operational management. I've worked in all these capacities in a variety of organizations. Uh, Currently, I am running my venture, on-time training and consultancy services, full time. And on-time training and consultancy services is a training and consultancy setup. It is uh, a platform where we provide services for PMI credentials for project, program, and portfolio management, and portfolio and program and project management related governance as well. We basically are the promoter and advocate of PMI and P3G QA standards. And we offer the courses and services for the same, including PMP, PgMP, PFMP, RMP, ACP, PPA, and some of the agile courses as well. Uh, this is a brief about ourselves. Now, Anika, I would request you to briefly introduce you, your career, your aspirations, and then we will begin the conversation.
Sure. I've been in the program management and project management space for roughly 17 to 18 years. During that time, I've supported the US government in all of those years. And it was roughly sometime last year that I realized that I needed to take the next step and pursue the PGMP just to solidify that I have those skill sets. My experience has really been involved in the healthcare IT sector. So that's where all of my time has been spent. Um, and yeah, I think that's about it.
Okay, great. Yeah. So, Erica, first thing first, why did you think about going for PGMP, and how do you think it is helping or will be helping in your professional career?
Yeah, so I just felt that a lot of companies get the terms confused and interchange them, where you get hired as a project manager, but you're really doing some things that's in the realm of program management and vice versa. And so I just thought that it was time for me to take the next step. I have the experience, and I wanted to just solidify that um, I can do this work and I can be certified and certified that I have the necessary skills. So I was just looking forward to just having that on my resume. I knew it would be helpful, not only now, but in the future as I pursue other opportunities if they present themselves.
And you're already in a relevant role, right? Where program management principles and knowledge base can be applied. So, do you think that whatever you have learned from the PGMP skills that it can be applied in your current role or in the organization?
Absolutely. As I was going through the training, there were several areas that I thought we could implement in my current role. So, for example, I think oftentimes we don't necessarily put together like a stakeholder registry or a benefit registry. And, those things are kind of in our head, and we know that we have to engage with stakeholders, but we rarely write them down. And I thought that that would be beneficial as something to add in.
Correct. Yes, and this happens almost every time when we hear out someone saying that, or we read it somewhere. We start connecting the dots as yes, this should be the right way of doing things, and probably we are doing like in some way, but probably not in the best way. So this is exactly where the credentials help us. Okay, so moving forward, Erica, you already have had your PMP when you thought of going for PGMP. So this is like a commonly asked question by multiple people that is it really necessary to have PMP to go for PGMP, or how the PMP learnings and knowledge base really helpful in the PGMP study plan. So what would you say?
I would say that it's definitely helpful to have the PMP before you pursue the PGMP. What was interesting in my experience is that I had my PMP for about 11 years already. And so I actually had to go back and review some of the PMBOK material because I had to refresh my memory and get into that PMI frame of mind. The PMP has tons of tools and techniques that aren't referenced in the standard for program management. They just assume you know them.
Yeah,
And if you're not applying them on the day-to-day basis, it's easy to kind of forget that, oh yeah, this is what PMI recommends. So absolutely, you definitely need the PMP basis of knowledge before you can go to the next level.
that's correct. And like just to answer that question myself, because I believe that there would be a couple of people who would like to know this, that is uh, PMP necessary to go for PGMP? So the answer to that is no. The PMP is not necessary for to go for PGMP. What is necessary is to have at least 4 years of project management experience along with 4 years of program management experience, like separate project management and separate program management experience for the PGMP or to become eligible for PGMP. However, if you already have your PMP, active PMP is available, then your 4 years of project management experience is going to be swapped with that, right? So it's not a mandatory requirement, but yes, the project management experience is actually a requirement, a mandatory requirement, not the PMP. If you have PMP, it is going to be fulfilled with that. And if you don't have PMP, then you need to uh, showcase your at least 4 years of project management experience to PMI in the application process. But this is correct that your knowledge of PMP is very helpful, and this is also correct that certain processes, for instance, certain artifacts, for instance, certain terminologies, those are going to be referenced maybe in the standard, but like just as a keyword, and they expect that you already know that. For instance, just as an example, PWBS, which is program work breakdown structure, is referenced, is mentioned in multiple at multiple places in the standard of program management. However, they have not really gone in depth for that because they expect that you know in detail from your project management knowledge that what is WBS and what are the different components of WBS or what are the different do's and don'ts of WBS. Right? Okay. So moving forward, Erica, uh, now this is a favorite question for those who are actively preparing for their PGMP exam. How much time did you actually take to prepare for the exam? Like, what was your study plan? What active time did you take for your exam prep? And maybe what was your schedule, number of hours in a day, in a week, or however you would like to help the PGMP candidate?
So I probably took an excessive amount of time studying. So I did dedicate 3 entire months to studying. And that's probably the typical time frame, but I think I went a step above and beyond. So I actually created a project plan with dates and milestones that I had to hit for each chapter, the chapter quizzes at the end. I created flashcards. And so there really wasn't a moment in time to but that I wasn't studying. So every day I took my lunch break and I studied for 1 hour. So that was every day. But then throughout the day, I had flashcards. If I went for a walk, I took my flashcards with me. If I was in the car, I was listening to your audio recordings. In the evening, I went through and did like a chapter review, just to make sure I knew like the core concepts. Um, So I would say probably 2 hours a day. On the weekends, I went to the library for at least 3 or 4 hours and just walked through whatever I had on my project plan. So it could be like a chapter review, it could be mock exams. Um, but I would say two full of the 3 months, 2 full months were studying the standard, studying the material that Tuba provides, and the chapter exams. And then that last month was dedicated solely to mock exams. And I probably spent even more time on the mock exams because it wasn't enough to just take the exam and get the score. You really needed to go through and understand like why you got the question right and why you got it wrong. And so Tuba gave really good advice because initially I was only looking at the questions I got wrong. And she was like, no, you have to review all of them. And I was like, well, that's going to take me forever to get to get through all of this material. But she was right because sometimes the questions I got right didn't mean I knew the answer. It just mean I could like select the right, answer by narrowing down the different choices, but it didn't mean I knew. I didn't really know the answer. So I did find going back through every single mock exam question very, very helpful. And I really think that's the key to success is putting in time for those mock exams.
Yeah, that's correct. And I believe, Erica, actively you did not take more than 2 to 3 months, like actively, because you have been
Yeah.
studying, I think, since June, or maybe July, but actively you started preparing for your exam, I think, in August or like somewhere in August. Yeah.
I
And
started July 1st at like studying. That's when we like started working together for studying.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, 2 to 3 months with your job and family and, whatever's going on, traveling, priorities, like it's a very, very, uh, I would say it's a very ideal time, or it's an average time. Everybody usually takes this much time. Within 2 to 3 months, your application, your preparation, your mocks, your learning, everything can be done. So this is not, a stretch time, I would say. The stretch time is when out of those 12 months eligibility, you are taking like actually 12 months and you go like to the exam like 2 to 3 days before your eligibility expiration. That is actually a stretch preparation. But you actually took like a very normal average time. And other than that, I would also want to like endorse your pointers, and those are very, very generic, because when people start off with us for their PgMP or even for any other credentials, they commit the same mistake. They think that okay, something we have got right. It means that we know this, we already have understood this, but that's not correct, at least in the beginning, because in the beginning, you are getting a question right or a concept right doesn't imply that you know it thoroughly, right? You need to understand. First of all, you need to check that whatever you have understood while attempting and what the explanation is suggesting is same or not. If it is same, even in that case as well, you need details, like because you have just started off and you don't know like a variety of things in detail. And if it is different, then probably it is just a guess, blind guess or an educated guess, and you need to still in that case as well, you need to know the details. So detailed review and connecting the answer and the concept back to the standard of the slide deck or videos or whatever applies is very, very much needed. And for the same reason, we suggest that investing time in that mock and the chapter practice part of your journey is pretty much needed. That's worth it actually. Right? In the exam as well as in your professional application of this knowledge as well, because those are scenarios, practical scenarios that happens like in our day-to-day working. So those are not like those are made up scenarios, but those are like practical scenarios that happens in the real program management world as well. That's totally worth it. Okay, but if you guys ask us, I would say that we provide a plan of 100 to 120 hours And we recommend that a candidate should be investing at least 15 to 18 hours in a week, because we can't really, suggest the daily investment of time. That varies from person to person. But on a weekly basis, usually people are able to make up time for 15 hours or so. And if you are able to do that, then you can easily cover up your whole material, at least the first iteration of that, in the initial 1.5 to 2 months. And maybe if like a second pass is needed for a certain items, then you can do that like in the remaining 3 to 4 weeks. And this way you can easily get ready for the exam, where you would be confident yourself as well that yes, I am ready to go for exam. It's not only me who would always be pushing that you go to the exam. It should be you as well who would say that yes, I feel now that I'm confident and I should be going to the exam. Okay. So now and you went to the exam room, at least for the PMI exam, after 11 to 12 years, because you said that you did your PMP like way way time back.
Yeah.
And now like in 2024 you I think it was back in 2011 or 12, and now you have done your PGMP in 2024. So uh, how was the exam experience overall for your PGMP exam with respect to the simulator and for certain features and maybe time management, and or like anything that you would like to share to the candidates?
Yeah, I would say my exam experience was fine. I mean, I dressed in layers. I knew the exam center potentially had a chance to be cold. I was constantly checking the clock to make sure that I had answered, a certain number of questions within like a period of time. I chose not to take a break. Did not want to lose my time because some of the questions, well, 90% of the questions were very long situational questions, and I would often either mark them or reread them just to make sure I didn't get caught up in any negatives, like pick which one is not the answer, or they'll say which one is the best answer, or something like that. And so I had to read it very clearly and sometimes read it again. So I did not take any breaks because of that. Um, but as far as time management went, about time that I answered all the questions and did my review, I actually had 7 minutes left. So I didn't have I didn't have a lot of time left, which which I was happy that I did not take a break during that time. But I will say the one thing that prepared me for the actual exam is on the weekends when I went to the library, I actually did all of my mock exams in a closed book, quiet fashion, timed myself just like the real exam. And that kind of got me in the mindset that if I get to a math question, I can't afford to spend 10 minutes, trying to calculate or remember the formulas or something like that. I would have to skip it and come back. You just have to use your time more wisely when you're in the exam scenario. And I found that going to the library and having a quiet amount of time, because I have a family and they're loud and it's hard to have a quiet space. So I found by simulating that environment, allowed me to kind of get in that mindset. So
Oh, okay. So you already practiced that, like how to be in the exam and how to divide my time in a way that how my first hour of the exam would look like, how my second hour of the exam would look like. So did you really like did you really give it a thought ahead of the exam that maybe like in the first hour I should have been done with 60 questions out of 170 or so. And if so, did that really help? Were you able to manage that? Uh, because at times people, most of the time, this is not a concern, but at times people struggle with the time as well. At times they uh, they, they complain after the exam that it was a very tiring exam, it was very long, and we are not used to like sit for consecutive 4 hours, at least now in this age. Because usually people are like who go for PCMP, they are above 30 or 35, and they have like different working habits. So, do you think that it's a good idea to pre-plan your exam, that how you are going to do like initial 50 question set, then how you are going to do the next 50 set of questions? Do you think this is how, or you will just go with the flow, like the way if the questions are coming, you are just keep on attempting, and plan is not a problem?
So for me, I definitely had a plan. They give you a dry erase board to jot down anything that you may want to jot down, and I used it actually to track my time. So you don't you I didn't have a clock. I just had the timer that was counting down, and I knew that okay, well, at this point in the first hour, I have to have like 60 questions answered, and then that gave me an idea whether or not I was on track or not. And I knew, okay, well, if I'm behind schedule and I got to make up this time, I may have to read a little faster, or I may need to mark some for review if it comes down to me having to, like, if I don't know right away what the answer is, I can't spend a lot of time on it. And it helped me stay on track. I'm definitely the type that kind of had to plan it out. Like I could not do a go with the flow type thing because I was terrified I might run out of time. But I think practicing the mocks helped tremendously because I knew that I was capable of doing so the mocks I did much faster than the 4 hour time. And I often had like an hour and a half extra time after doing the mocks. But I think it helped train me because when you're in the actual exam, you're nervous, you could just not, you're in a different environment, there's people around you, um, and you may not perform at your normal time and speed because you realize this is the real thing. So having that plan in advance certainly helped me, but also having the experience by doing the mocks, I knew I was capable of doing a faster time, but I paced myself. So
Yes,
I think
that
it helped.
is correct. Yeah, this is one of the reasons why we provide the mock exam, and this is one of the reasons why we provide a study plan where certain directions for how to do the mock exam is provided. Because it's not only about doing the mock exam. If you are doing the mock exam in your comfort zone, then probably you would not get the best essence of attempting those mock exams. You should be timing, like you should be doing it in a time manner. You should be uh, putting yourself in that in that simulated environment where you are actually manifesting that you are in the exam room, and you are in front of the invigilator, and the timer is ticking, and everything is like going like the way it is going in the exam room. It's very necessary. At least 1 to 2 mock exams should be done in this way, because that is going to give you the actual feel of the exam. Not the real feel that's going to be in the exam room, but you can simulate that in some manner, and that's pretty much needed. So tentatively 1 minute to 70 to 75 seconds, depending on how long a particular question is, should be the right strategy for the exam. 60 to 75 seconds per question is the right strategy for the exam. Some questions are very small, some questions are very long. Accordingly, you should be adjusting the time. Okay. So, Erica, did you come across any calculation or direct questions, like direct statement coming from the standard or ECO? Did you come across this?
I didn't. I was prepared for doing some calculations. I did get net present value and maybe internal rate of return. Um, but nothing, or maybe it was like cost benefit ratio, nothing that required me to like know the EVM formulas. Although I did know them, I was prepared because I remember I had to know them for my PMP, and I was so nervous that I may need to know them again. So I did memorize those. But I ended up not even needing them. And so some of the questions were just, if you can figure out the BCR, that was, a pretty easy one. There were some program selection questions, like which program would you choose based on internal rate of return or even BCR or something like that. But those are fairly easy. It didn't require me to like
That requires your analytical and your logical understanding of the strategic
exactly.
that usually organizations make. Yeah, I understand that, but those do not really want you to like open up the calculator and do certain calculations because those are very logical questions. Okay, and same is the case with ECO based questions because people are like very much worried about that certain statements coming like directly from the ECO in the questions, and there are going to be a couple of questions like that because this is like kind of a rumor in the market that you may get direct questions, like direct theoretical questions from the ECO or the standard. So I also want to tell that PMI exams are very, very situational, very scenario based, and they're going to test you from every angle. They're going to test you, but they are not going to test you in a very straightforward input output tool technique kind of way. This is going to be very easy actually. It's this has been the case, and this is very easy to pass the exam. So exam is not that easy. Okay, you were my mentee, and I used to be your mentor throughout this journey. So one of the biggest troubles in this overall journey is the application itself. So the credential is half of the application and half from the exam actually. So it's 50-50%. And accordingly, the application process is stringent. It's very subjective, it's stringent, and it requires a lot of expertise as well. So how was that process for you? Because you and I worked on your application, and I can recall that I was in a bit of hurry because I had my applications planned, so I had to do it like that, just 1 to 2 days of time. How was the application process from the idea to the approval? How long did it actually take?
It didn't take long. I mean, you're right. We were rushing because I know you had holiday coming up, and I actually did too. And we got through everything maybe in 2 days, working together. And then the application approval happened before you even came back from vacation. It was very like a very fast turnaround. I want to say 24, maybe 48 hours. It was very fast. I was shocked because I thought it was gonna take a really long time and I was scared I was gonna get audited and it was just so much. But it was much easier with you than without you. So initially I was attempting to do it before I had found you and it just kind of stressed me out. It's difficult because you have the experience, but you have to word it in a way that PMI is looking for. You have to use all of your like word counts, and it just kind of stressed me out. But working with you, you had like the different layouts that we had to think through. So we had to think through like risk or some kind of thresholds that we have in place or the budgets that you manage, the number of FTEs and all of that. It just made more sense when I did it with you. On my own, I was struggling. There was no way I could get through it in 48 hours the way that we did it. In fact, I had given myself a timeline of 2 weeks and I was astonished that we got through it in 48 hours, despite, our time zone differences and all of that. We made it work. It was a really fast, easy process. I cannot recommend Tuba enough.
Thank you so much, Erica. Yeah, I can recall that the application development process did not take more than 1 to 2 days. And I can also recall that your first and second approval, that came very early as well. I think in like just a couple of days. And you are right. When I came back like in 10 days time, like before that, I think both of your approvals were done. So
Mhm.
yeah, that happens in case of PgMP application, at least that if your application is rightly written, well written, and PMI considers that like correct. And most important factor that they look out for in the application is how strategically driven it is with respect to the organizational objectives, number one. Number two, how well it is articulated the anticipated benefits before the program has been, started, like when it was in the ideation phase, and uh, like if the program is completed, in that case, they also expect that what benefits you have actually delivered to your customer organization or the funding organization or to your own organization where you are representing yourself as a program manager. And the other thing that they are very, very much concerned about is these are very important tips that I usually don't, disclose, but in case anybody want to get benefited from this is, uh, if your application is written in a project management language, then like they are going to sense it maybe in like just in initial 2 to 3 minutes of time, and they are going to reject it. Your application should be written in the program management language. If you are going to dump everything from your PMP knowledge or your project management knowledge, then this is not going to pass. So that's the biggest mistake that people make. And it's not only that I only write the applications for my own mentees. I do correct a lot of rejected applications from the audience at a global level, and I know that why applications are rejected by BFM. Okay, so Erica, you have opted for my self-paced PGMP exam prep package, and you have taken like everything from me, like with respect to the prep material, videos, and slides, and samples, and mock exam, everything you have opted for that. So, do you think that the study material and the plan, of course, that describes that how to use that material, it was enough to get ready and to get confident and in the exam as well, do you think? Or did you go for anything else on top of that? It's okay, you can talk about that as well.
Yeah, I early on I realized even after we worked together too that there just isn't a lot of material out there for the PGMP. It's a
Hmm.
relatively new certification in comparison to like when the PMP came out. So there really just isn't a lot of material. And so I did my job did send me for a boot camp class, a PGMP boot camp class, and it was 4 days. So 8 hours a day. And it just did not, it wasn't helpful. It did not give me what I was looking for. I really needed like tips and tricks and where should I focus? And they had a lot of breakout classes or team projects that just didn't really refer back to the standard. And so I was very disappointed. And then when I started working with YouTube, it was nice to have just the outline of what I need to focus on and the amount of time that it was going to take me. The material was more than sufficient. Initially, I was kind of freaking out because I was like, oh, well, I want to be able to compare against Tuba's material to other material out there. So I did buy other books. I did have that training class that my job sent me to. But ultimately, I just dropped all of those. It wasn't helpful. I focused on her material and listened to her recorded sessions several times because there were things that you would miss initially when you listen to it the first time. You're not going to grasp like 100% of everything she says. But when I went back through it a second time and going through the mock exams and things like that, I picked up on other things that she was referencing. Like she would give out tips and tricks, and maybe it didn't stick the first time. But when you look at it through the lens of the mock exams, you realize she was trying to tell you, like, this is a point you have to remember. Like, it's not optional. You have to have a good understanding of it. And I felt the material was definitely what I was looking for. I needed several mocks. I needed the program, the planning, the plan pretty much. You would say, hey, spend a week on this, make sure you understand, do the chapter reviews, then move on to this. And you gave a very specific order that wasn't in line with the standard, but it was very beneficial to know um, different key points, the roles of all of the different players, as part of like program governance or the program steering committee. Like you had to know, um, you had to have a good understanding from a PMI perspective and
Erica, are you with us? Uh,
Rejoin. Hey.
yeah, I'm back. I'm so sorry, my internet acted up. I believe I'm so sorry about that. Yeah, so Erica, you were talking about your experience with respect to the training material, the training and exam prep material. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just finishing up saying that I think it was very helpful. I really could not have gotten through the exam, sitting for the exam or prepping for the exam without the material you provided, for sure.
Yeah, and one other thing that I would like to point out here is, and I believe a couple of people in the audience section, they also are willing to know this, that at times people are willing to know that only standard reading is enough to pass the exam, or only going for the mocks is enough to pass the exam. I believe you should be the right person to answer this because you have already experienced that recently. So, what do you think about that? That only reading the standard and there's no explanation for that, and there is no narration for that, is that alone helpful for the exam?
It's certainly helpful for the exam. I would have to say it can't be your only material for tackling the exam, and I say that because the standard often doesn't go into a lot of details on different processes or different how you execute things. A lot of it just kind of assumes this knowledge from like PMP or just in your real life experience. I think it was really the mock exams that really kind of help solidify the knowledge. So you would read through the text in the standard and you would have a really basic understanding of the material, but it wasn't until you see it in a mock exam and get like that real life taste of like that real life experience that it starts to like resonate and it makes sense. Just reading the text on the surface level, I don't think is enough to really absorb the material. And that's why I had to read it. I had to read the standard a few times because you may read it the first time and it may go in one ear and out the other. It doesn't really stick until you get these exam questions, these mock exam questions wrong, and you're like, oh, that's what they meant. That's the concept that they're trying to drill into me. And reading alone just won't give you that experience.
I agree. I totally agree. And, whenever somebody asks me this question, I just say that only if you are 20 to 30 years experience in program management solely, then probably you could get the right narrative from the standard in the first to second read of the book. Otherwise, if you are in your like 10 to 15 years of experience, or if you are like if you have less than that experience, then probably no. You
Mhm.
probably are not going to get the right essence from the standard in the initial few reads. And trust me, every word in the standard has a meaning. It has a context behind which needs to be understood. And there are a couple of concepts, for instance, the benefits benefits management and the benefit life cycle. It has a lot into it, and you need to understand that from a practical perspective, from an exam perspective, and standard has everything in it, but you need to like dig out the right place where that concept is connected, and it's not easy to do for everyone. So we can't really blame the standard. The standard is pretty good, but it's a standard, right? It's not a fiction book. You need to like take it accordingly. And this is exactly where the mentors and the trainers like come in. They help you understanding the right context of that standard. We are not teaching anything else. We are just explaining the standard in a way that is helpful to understand for everyone, like whoever is in program management, and they are not like for many years in the program management, then they can understand it if they listen to us. with you. They need to have some experience in project management as well as in program management, and they definitely can understand if they listen to our videos. So videos are also helpful. Slides are also helpful because slides is nothing but like a better representation of the standard, and the standard is difficult to read for many reasons, right? But slides like are a better presentation of the standard. Then mock exams, of course, are needed, but it's not only the mock exam. Please get that right. It's not only about the mock exam. If you directly learn to the mock exam, then probably you would not be in a good position in the exam. That I can guarantee. So get your strategies right about the exam. Okay, so
I
Eric, yeah, sure. Please.
I was just going to add that you're right. The slides were very helpful because there aren't very many tables in the standard. I mean, there are some, but they don't go into significant detail. So the slides that you provide are helpful because it gives you an idea. Like some people are just visual learners, and having the visual cues in the slides were helpful. And it's over 500 plus slides in the material. And so um it just gave me a different way to absorb the material than just reading text in the standard. It can be boring, and you can like glaze over it. You won't actually absorb it all.
Yeah, I know that. I know, and I have been there, done that. When I was doing my PgMP, I was struggling a lot because I didn't go to any mentor, and I tried to do that all by myself, and I really struggled. I should have gone to someone, but I couldn't find someone like useful. To be very honest with you, because I couldn't find someone for myself. But somebody who can help you with that is really a blessing. Okay, so Erica, in the interest of time, we need to cover a couple of more questions, and then we will go to the audience questions and answers. Second, so Erica, everyone has their own idea about the return because this is a huge investment, like investment of time, efforts, and money, right? And because this is a financial investment as well, and it's a huge financial investment. So why do you think that people should go for it? Or what's your idea of payback, getting the return from this investment?
So for me, it was probably different. So I am very intrinsically motivated, meaning that I don't need anyone else to help motivate me. So I didn't do it for money, or I didn't do it for like the next promotion. I did it because I know I had the experience and I wanted to have that on my resume. So it was kind of like future proofing me going forward. So although I'm not working as a program manager right now, I have in the past, I have the experience. And because the terms get interchanged so much where people are like, oh no, you're doing program management or you're doing project management. It was more so to solidify and to cement that I have the skills to do both. So I'm not I guess I can't discuss or describe how it's going to be beneficial for everyone because I will say it is a fairly new certification and it hasn't really taken off at the pace that the PMP has. But I think it's only a matter of time that once leaders and organizations realize that people who are certified come with this particular skill set, knowledge, experience, um, that having the certification implies, it will certainly raise in value. And I think it just makes me a much more valuable candidate in the pool of other candidates. If you're going to see my resume versus someone else, not only do I have the years of experience to back it up, but I also have that knowledge, that certification. You know that I spent time to do this. Like I spent time to advance my career, whereas the other candidate would not have that. It kind of shows that I have more tenacity. I put in work to prove that I've done this. And so I think that would set me above other candidates.
Correct. I always say this way that probably a certain organizational experience in the project management and the program management capacity is going to uh, get you this far. But knowing the standards from a global perspective going to take you like here, right? So, and one should not be like very organization specific, because you can change organization anytime for whatsoever reason, right? So one should not be focused on a particular organization. One should be focused on their market competitiveness in their region or at a global level. And this is exactly what a professional should be thinking about, that am I market competitive? If for whatever reason today I need to leave my organization, is the market going to accept? Is the market going to welcome me or not? Am I ready for that? That's the right question that you need to answer. And trust me, one should be ready for that. One should be ready for any kind of circumstances. And this is your readiness. Actually, readiness with respect to the market, with respect to the global needs, with respect to the knowledge and skill set as well. And this is the right payback. This is the right way of measuring one's worth, and not everything is tangible. I believe intangible benefits are way more crucial than the tangible benefits. And if you have your intangible worth realized, then the tangible one is definitely going to be realized sooner or later. It's just about time. Yeah, so Erica, what is the last word of advice that you would like to give to the PGMP aspirants and the PGMP candidates?
Okay, so my last word of advice would be have a plan. You have to go into this with a plan. In addition, I would suggest you figuring out how best you learn. So some people are visual learners. I'm actually like an audio learner. And so I would listen to Tuba's recordings in the car or at work or before I go to sleep or on a walk. And that helped me internalize the material. And I think the one thing she said that was crucial is that you have to think like a program manager. You have to go into this plan, into studying, having that mindset. That is the most important thing. And you may be wondering, like, oh, how do I have the mindset? Like, you have to think like a program manager. You have to put in, like, you have to truly believe that. And they have some skills that program managers should have in the standard. Like, it should resonate with you. It should not just be like a chapter that you have to read, like, oh yeah, program managers need to know this, this, and this. Like, you should really understand that and take that to heart. And I think, if you have a plan and you stick to your plan, regardless of what's going on, I think you'll be in a good place. I truly do.
I certainly think the same way, and this is the right way of going forward as well in your career. So Erika, we have got a couple of queries, and if like the other people have their queries as well, you can drop that in the comment box, or you can just unmute yourself, raise your hand, unmute yourself, and ask that directly to Erika or to myself. First, let's answer these queries which we already have in the comments area. So Zalan is saying that she's actually asking that what are some of the biggest changes you have felt after completing PGMP impacting your role and knowledge bucket? Now, this is important because, and this was my first question as well. Maybe he has missed that part. So maybe he wants to know your personal flavor or personal experience that post PGMP, did you really get a chance to implement? Not all, some of the concepts of the PGMP in your work, in your role, in your organization.
Yeah, I would have to say just going through the material, I saw holes in my current process. Maybe we didn't have these documentation, we didn't have, I mentioned like a benefit register, like we knew what we were doing and what we were marching towards, but we didn't have a benefit register where people were assigned for, you were responsible for completing your benefits, or a stakeholder register. We knew who all the stakeholders were, but we weren't, um, really documenting the way that they prefer to be contacted, the way that they prefer to get reports and all of that. And I would have to say a really big thing that I learned during the PGMP was like that closing process. I had not been, my previous experience did not involve like going through program closure. And so that ended up being a very big piece of the exam, knowing the different steps to go to march towards program closure was very beneficial.
Yes, that's correct. So Fahad is asking that what are your thoughts if anyone without going through the book, I believe by book it means standard, and only going through the mocks and lectures can clear the exam. I believe we have already talked about that in pretty much detail that every piece is important, the book is important, the some form of narration is important. You may need mock exams for sure. You may need some samples as well. At times, people like struggle in really understanding that how charter is different than the business case or how roadmap visually looks like. So every piece is important, and you should be going for someone who is able to help you with everything, like from the start till the end, application included, uh, practical. Practical connect of that knowledge to uh, your organizational knowledge is included. So all of that is important. We can't really say that only mocks is important or only standard is important or only like investing 2 to 3 weeks and just getting ready and sitting in the exam is going to work. No, this is a proper journey, and if you try to like climb the steps like in a way that you are going to skip things, then you may fall down like pretty badly as well. So it's about going slow and steady and uh like doing the right things at the right time, right? So we believe in that. Okay, so Erica is asking, so this is another Erica. I told you that I know a couple of Ericas, so this is another Erica. So she's asking that what aspects of the PM box we need to be reviewed or refreshed before the exam. I believe you are the right person to answer this. Yeah.
So I did have to review the quality management section, the risk management section, knowing like the tools and techniques, even like root cause analysis, like they have the fishbone diagram and then like the salience model, like all of those key terms you'll see in the PgMP, but it doesn't talk about it in a standard. But you should know the process. And then one other key piece is closing projects are going to be different than closing programs. And you have to know the difference of when you do one step versus the other. And you can't close your program until you've completely closed all of the projects or components. And so that was material I had to go back and review to make sure I had the two straight. So
That's correct. You would need all the processes revised, Erica, and you would need the fair understanding of different PMI artifacts like different plans, different registers, different repositories, all of that is needed. So they are not going to explain that again and again that what is OPA, for instance, what is EEF. They expect that you already know this because uh, that is pretty much referred in different uh, uh, at different phases of the life cycle, program life cycle, but that's not going to be discussed in detail because they expect that you already know that from your project management knowledge. So either you know that already or you need to like keep your PM box in front of you as well. And if you are referring PM box, then this is recommended that you keep PM box 6th edition in front of you rather than 7th edition because 6th edition is more relatable to the PMP and PgMP exam than the 7th edition. I'm not saying
yeah.
that 7th edition is useless. I'm just saying that 6th is more helpful than the 7th. 7th is also useful, but 6th is more helpful. Okay, so the another question from Erica is how many long form questions were included in your PGM? Yes, Erica.
All of them. Maybe you have 170 questions. Maybe 10 to 15 were just regular questions that tested like your definition, like your knowledge of definitions. Maybe 10 to 15, but I have to say all of them were really long situational questions that required you to read like 3 or 4 sentences. Some of the sentences aren't even relevant, but that's how they, they make you read them all so you could see. You have to discern whether or not this is useful information or they're just trying to throw you off.
That's correct. At times they are just going to distract you. So the long question is nothing but a noise, and the actual ask is like in the last statement of the question. So they are going to like scare you, confuse you, like in every possible way, and you need to understand this trick by PMI. That when they are actually genuinely asking something in that long question, and when they are just distracting you. But usually it's a mix, and the experience can vary from person to person. But usually it's a mix of questions. You can get long questions as well. You would most likely get 2 to 3 liner questions. You would get a very confusing question, which is just one liner, but very confusing as well. So it's not about long or short. It's about how well understood the concept is. And usually, as per my experience, the long questions are easier than the shorter questions. As per my experience, their long questions are not that tricky, and their short questions are more tricky or more confusing.
I agree.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So another question by Erica is, did your PgMP exam include any questions related to the fifth study? Do you want to say about that? Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not certain because I studied using the fourth edition. And so everything that I had on exam made sense from what I learned. I mean, there were a few that were kind of tricky and they could have possibly been those 20 that, that they're experimental questions that they're trying out, but nothing that didn't make sense or I hadn't already seen in the standard.
That's correct, because exam has not been majorly changed. So there was a like very minor update that had happened in March this year. This is correct in the ECO, and maybe like to some extent in the exam as well. But this is not a major update, and uh, major update is expected, but nobody knows. Like until and unless PMI is going to announce it, we can't really say anything for sure. However, usually this happens. Usually, this has been an observation that whenever PMI changes or updates their standard, so a couple of months or a couple of years later, they usually update the exam, majorly update the exam, where the ECO and exam and format and handbook, everything is going to be updated, and there's going to be a proper announcement for that as well. So PMI has not majorly updated the exam as of now. The current exam is very, very much related to the previous ECO, the previous standard, and the whatever way the exam used to be. It's still the same. So I do not really see a reason that you go for fifth edition for the example. Of course, you can go for fifth edition for your own understanding and your learning, and just to get updated. However, for the exam, it's going to be a confusion because fifth edition is different than the fourth edition. And I know a couple of people who have gone only uh, for the fifth edition for their exam, and they ended up losing the exam for the same reason, because exam is very different. Exam is actually referring the current ECO, which is mostly referring the fourth edition or the fifth edition. So there is a separate domain in fifth edition, which is not being asked in the exam as of now. Nobody has ever mentioned that, right? So once PMI is going to announce it, and then you can, we ourselves are going to tell you that now don't go for the fourth edition and go for the fifth edition. Yeah, so I believe all the questions have been answered, which were there in the comment box. If there is any other question that anybody would like to ask, you can just unmute and ask that directly from Eric or myself. Otherwise, we are pretty much on time and we should. Okay, Omar is asking that how many hours of study you had done during the prep week? I believe he has answered that already, but Erica, very quickly, if you want to re-answer that.
Yeah, I would say during a week I would study at least 2 hours a day. So during a work week, Monday through Friday, at least 10 hours. On the weekend, I did significantly more. I tried to do somewhere around 2 to 4 hours Saturday and 2 to 4 hours on Sunday, depending on, what other things the family had going on. But I would fit it in every available time I had. So I would say at least 15 to 20 hours a week.
Yeah, 15 to 20 hours a week is a very, very standard time that anyone would utilize. At times, people are they're fast, they're quick, and they may not take that much time. They may cover the same content in 10 hours in a week, which is also fine. But usually, it's 15 hours per week is a very manageable time that one can take out from their busy schedule. Okay, I believe all the questions are answered, and if there is nothing left and people do not want to ask more questions, we can wrap up the session. Thank you very much, Erika, to take out time and to help us understand your PgMP journey and to answer the audience questions. I'm very grateful. And thank you everyone who has joined the session. Thank you for taking out time. So I will be back soon with another success story webinar. Until then, take care. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erika. Have a good day.
You too.